Today is Saturday, February 4th. It's that time of year when many of you may be thinking about your spring break and summer vacations. So we want to help you out with everything from how to get the best deals and book your flights at the right time to how many flight cancellations to expect in 2023 and what legal rights you have that the airlines might not want you to know. For all that and more, renowned travel expert Scott Keyes joins me here on the show once again. He's best known as the founder of the popular travel website Scott's Cheap Flights, which recently rebranded under the new name, Going. Scott and his team help more than 2 million members travel and experience the world by spotlighting the best flight deals possible. And he's sharing a ton of helpful and timely travel information with us right now. Welcome to the Newsworthy Special Edition Saturday, when we sit down with a different expert or celebrity every Saturday to talk about something in the news. Don't forget to tune in every Monday through Friday for our regular episodes, where we provide all the day's news in 10 minutes. I'm Erica Mandy. It's now time for today's Special Edition Saturday. Scott, thanks so much for coming back on the Newsworthy.
Thank you so much for having me. Great to be here.
So first, let's dive right into it. If someone is trying to plan a spring break vacation right now, how can they find the best deals? What should they be looking for?
Yeah, there are a few things that I would recommend. I mean, first, if you're talking about travel over a specific week, specific set of dates, the best thing that you can do to get yourself a cheap flight at this point is to be flexible about your destination and to try to get it booked in the next few weeks. Look, if you set your heart on going to Panama City, Florida for spring break, but if flights to Panama City are $500, but there are cheap flights to Nashville for $200 or Austin for $150 or Phoenix for just $100 round trip, I think it's important to be able to ask yourself, would I rather go to Panama City for $500 or Phoenix for $100? But then second, what a lot of people I think ultimately get wrong when it comes to booking flights is getting the timing wrong. The best time to purchase your flights is not on a Tuesday at 1 p.m. like you often read on the internet. It's not exactly 63 days before travel. It's during what I call a Goldilocks window. This is a certain period in advance of travel when cheap flights are most likely to pop up. And so for travel in late March, early April, the Goldilocks window for domestic flights is about 1 to 3 months in advance of travel, give or take. And so the end of that Goldilocks window is starting to come up here probably in end of February, early March, depending on when your spring break is. And so that's why you're going to want to try to get things booked here pretty soon.
And does that 1 to 3 month before travel apply to, say, summer travel as well?
No, so I'm so glad you asked, because for peak travel periods, you're talking, middle of summer, Christmas, New Year's, you really need to add a few months to those recommendations, really more like 3 to 6 months in advance, 3 to 7 months for domestic flights, which means that if you're hoping to travel over the summer, now is around when you should be looking about booking those flights, in the same way that thinking about it like you're buying a swimsuit. When do they go on sale? In the winter. Same with summer flights. If you wait until May, the chances of a cheap flight at that point, pretty slim. I'll give you one quick example. Just a month ago, we saw flights to Italy in the middle of summer for $462 round trip. That same flight is going to cost $1,500 come May. But for folks who were able to plan ahead and be on the ball, they were able to get a real, $1,000 off of their summer European flights.
And while we're talking prices, where are we now when it comes to flight prices compared to pre-pandemic times or even during the pandemic?
It has been a yo-yo of airfare prices in the past 3 years. March 2020, airfare just sank like a rock. I mean, it went down to record lows and more or less stayed there for about 2 years. But then starting last spring, just about a year ago, airfare started to shoot back up as so many folks started to feel comfortable traveling again for the first time. And, you saw record month-over-month increases, at one point a 19% increase in airfare in a single month. But what I think a lot of folks missed is that beginning in June of last year, airfare started falling, and it's down now 20% from that peak It's fallen 6 of the past 7 months. And if you squint, airfare today looks almost exactly where it was in February 2020. If you fell asleep the month before the pandemic, woke up today and looked at airfare, nothing about it would surprise you. And that's going to mean, certainly expensive summer flights, expensive last minute flights, but a lot of cheap flights available, especially if you're willing to plan a bit further in advance or travel during shoulder season or off season. Those $241 round trip flights to Barcelona weren't just something that was available in March and April of 2020. That's something that we actually found for our going members last month, a flight over to Barcelona that cheap, and those types of deals are popping up once again.
Do you think that's because airlines are kind of just recalibrating back to normal kind of a situation, or why do you think it's gone back to pre-pandemic airfares?
My sense is that level of pent-up demand that really kind of boosted prices in spring and summer of 2022 has mostly been released at this point, that you don't have nearly as much kind of folks willing to pay any price, that things have mostly returned back to normal, and that airline capacity, the number of flights on the schedule, has started to rebound to closer to pre-pandemic levels. Last year they were still down 15-20%. So you had high demand, low supply, and high fares as a result. I think everything's starting to renormalize a bit now, and I think that's going to be a benefit for folks who were worried about sticker shock on airfare last year.
Have travel styles changed over the last few years?
People have really kind of opted to travel more to warm, sunny, maybe kind of outdoorsy types of places. Think Florida, Texas, Arizona, South Carolina. Cancun has seen a huge surge in American visitors over the past couple years, because I think a lot of folks have really just decided the types of trips that I want to take now, that I'm excited for, are sort of closer, more outdoorsy, beachy type of vacations. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think it also means that for folks who are excited to go to, to Europe, to Latin America, places like that, that there are more deals awaiting, because those tickets aren't quite selling themselves the way that flights to Florida and Texas have over the past couple of years.
So overall for 2023, what's the expectation for travel demand?
The number of travelers looks basically in line with where we were pre-pandemic. In fact, the TSA numbers, which measures how many people are getting on an airplane each day, just got released for the full month of January. And for the first time since the pandemic began, we actually had a month that topped the same month in 2019. So I think what you're seeing is things, after a really topsy-turvy 3 years, things finally starting to even out and normalize, and travel becoming just, another thing that we kind of all get to enjoy once again, without the additional wackiness with regard to airfare and schedules and cancellations and all that really seems to have plagued the past few years.
Still ahead, remember that Southwest Airlines meltdown over the holidays? Scott Keyes gives his take, and more importantly, shares what we should know as travelers if we find ourselves in a similar situation. Since airlines like to give out vouchers or credit when things go wrong, right? But there are times when they legally owe you a full cash refund. Scott Keyes explains your rights as an airline customer. Plus, he shares his overall predictions for travel in 2023 and more. But first, a quick break to thank our sponsors. The Newsworthy is brought to you by Rothy's. In the new year, my husband and I decided we wanted to try to simplify a bit more. Stop saying yes to too many things, and get rid of any extra clutter or other stuff we don't really need or wear. And as part of that, I finally got around to organizing my closet again and donating some of the clothes that never leave the hanger. Well, even as I refresh my closet and wardrobe, my Rothy shoes continue to deserve their spot front and center. They continue to be chic and comfortable, and trendy yet timeless. And as I need new shoes that are pretty much any style, Rothy's is one of my go-to places to get them. They have tons of options for new wardrobe staples that you can feel good about wearing, since they're not only 100% machine washable, but they're also sustainably made. Their signature thread is spun from recycled single-use plastic water bottles. So for stylish and comfortable shoes, shop Rothy's and get $20 off your first purchase at rothys.com/newsworthy. And thanks to our other sponsor, Stitch Fix. You know that feeling when clothes fit just right and are your style? Yeah, that's that Stitch Fix feeling. Because Stitch Fix has you covered with over 1,000 brands and styles, plus a wide range of sizes. And you don't have to spend forever searching from scratch. Instead, Stitch Fix is kind of like your style partner. Once you answer a few questions about where you typically like to shop, what you like to wear, and your price range, your stylist learns all about your tastes and collaborates with you on looks you'll love. I also appreciate there's no subscription required. Simply order a refresh as needed or try regular seasonal fixes. I even like Stitch Fix Freestyle, which is like a curated shop just for me. In fact, I recently got trendy boots, a cute top, and a neutral color purse, and wore them all together the other night feeling so stylish with very little effort or time. And right now, Stitch Fix is offering the Newsworthy listeners $20 off their first fix at stitchfix.com/newsworthy. That's stitchfix.com/newsworthy for $20 off today. stitchfix.com/newsworthy. Okay, now back to our conversation. Okay, so speaking of, what was your take on the Southwest meltdown that happened at the end of December last year when I think it was something like 2/3 of their flights were canceled and they're now trying to reimburse people that were stranded. We have the transportation department investigating. What's your take, and is there something that travelers can do or learn from an event like that?
I think people accept and understand flight disruptions because of snowstorms, thunderstorms. But I think what really galls people rightly is when an airline like Southwest has this just huge swath of cancellations for bad reasons, for reasons within the airline's control. I think in the end, the airline has mostly done the right thing in terms of not only providing the refunds that people were legally owed, but also making people whole for the out-of-pocket expenses that they had to incur as a result of those cancellations. And so I'm glad to see that they seem to have taken the financial hit that they ought to have as a result of this really big blunder. And I hope it spurs, the type of action and investment that the airline needs to do in order to prevent this in the future. My general outlook, though, on cancellations and disruptions, broadly speaking, is that if the airlines can manage to hold off from those really kind of debacles, those meltdowns, the otherwise they seem to have found themselves in a place where there are fewer than normal disruptions and cancellations. And my hope is that 2023, in fact, one of my predictions for 2023 is we're going to see fewer cancellations than we did in 2022.
That is very good to hear. At the same time, you mentioned, what airlines are legally required to do. And I think that's always a good reminder. What are like the top one or two things that you like to remind travelers that are their rights that maybe they don't know already?
If an airline cancels or significantly changes your flight, you are entitled to a full cash refund, period, if you choose not to travel. And so it doesn't matter what the cause of the cancellation or significant delay is. It can be something within the airline's control, like with Southwest. It can be a thunderstorm. It can be a snowstorm. It can be a global pandemic. The airline is still required to provide you a cash refund, not a voucher, not a credit, a cash refund if you choose not to travel. Second, if an airline loses your bag or it's delayed, you're entitled to reasonable out-of-pocket expenses to get reimbursed for those. So think toiletries, medicine, clothes. Save your receipts and submit those to the airlines after, because they are required to make you whole for those types of purchases when they mess up and don't deliver your bag on time.
The other thing I wanted to ask about is the airlines' changes during the pandemic, when they were more lenient, maybe waiving change fees if a customer needed to change or cancel a flight. Are you seeing that stick around, or are those types of fees coming back?
The airlines made one of the best policy changes that we've seen in years in late 2020 when they, across the board, U.S. airlines got rid of change fees as long as you weren't booked in a basic economy ticket. Even today, and they really stressed the fact that this is a permanent change. If you book your flight and then you later want to switch the dates or switch, times or anything like that, you can do so without having to pay the previous $200 penalty to do so. If the new flight's more expensive, you have to cover that fare difference. But if the new flight is cheaper, you actually get the difference back in the form of a travel credit. The biggest change, though, that that has occurred in the past, say, 12, 18 months was this used to apply to all tickets, including basic economy. But starting in, I think it was late 2021 or early 2022, depending on the airline, they started to exclude basic economy. And so that this is, just one more reason that they're trying to give travelers to pay a bit more for the main economy tickets to be able to make free flight changes after you book.
Although no matter what, you always have 24 hours, right?
As long as you book directly with an airline, and as long as it's at least 7 days before your flight, when you purchase a ticket, from the moment you hit purchase, you have a 24-hour grace period during which you can cancel and get a full refund. And the way that's beneficial is if, let's say, there's a mistake fare. I started doing this line of work after I found a $130 round trip flight to Milan. That was an incredible mistake fare that if I had waited until, to talk with my friends, figure out who else wants to go and wait like 6 hours to scout it out and everything, that fare would have disappeared. And so instead, what I did was I booked it right away, knowing, hey, I've just locked in this price for 24 hours. If for whatever reason I decide I don't want it, I know I can cancel by this time tomorrow and still be able to get that $130 back.
Any final thought in terms of travel in 2023?
I think that airfare is going to get at least 5% cheaper this year compared to where it was last year. I'm thinking that flights are going to be less full this year than they were last year. One other fun one. I think there's going to be at least a handful of new countries that are going to announce plans to lift their airport liquid restrictions. This is something that the United Kingdom announced that by next summer, they're going to once again allow you to bring liquids through security. Some other countries in Europe are saying they're looking at it as well, including Spain. I don't know if or when that'll come to the US. I'm hopeful it's going to be sooner rather than later, but I think this is a trend that's beginning and hopefully it's going to start to catch on.
Well, thank you so much to Scott Keyes and the team at Going for sharing so much great information. And don't forget, what you used to know as Scott's Cheap Flights is now called Going. The company still promises to help you find the best possible deals and so much more. New features like a mobile app will debut later this year as well. You can learn more about all the offerings and services at going.com. And be sure to check them out for more tips on social media. As always, if you found this episode helpful, share it with your friend who loves to travel. And check out the Newsworthy's regular episodes, too, where we deliver our signature fast, fair, fun news roundups in just about 10 minutes every weekday. So we'll be back on Monday. Until then, have a great weekend.